button. And again, welcome to session 2 of the 2015 series of Sales and Demo Universities. My name is Richard Duffy. I'm the Vice President of Partner Strategy and Enablement. And what we're going to do today is we're going to cover a new feature that has just been released as part of Acumatica 5.1. And a couple of quick things that I would like to remind you. At any point in time, if you want to know what's going on from an Acumatica point of view, make sure that you are always accessing the partner portal. And I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to log in with my username and password. And one of the things that you will notice is that the very first page that you see on the Acumatica Partner University is this one. And we try and make sure that all the latest news is kept up and available here for you. All right, so you can see one of the things that's here is a reminder that Acumatica 5.1 is now available. And so if you click here on the Read More link, you will see that it actually takes you to a blog post, explains to you a little bit about some of the new features that are in 5.1, and also gives you a link to the release notes. Now, of course, at any point in time, you are able to go and download Acumatica, the very latest release. Now, you can either do it from up here on the downloads link, or of course, on the front page of the portal, you'll see there is a link that says download Acumatica. When you go to that, that will take you to this page, which is where you can always access the very latest version of Acumatica and any links to any of the other updates that are relevant. So hopefully by now you have upgraded to Acumatica 5.1. Now the good news is for those of you who are using one of the Try Acumatica sites that I am running, and there's about 43 of those now that are 43 instances that are currently running. All of those have been updated to Acumatica 5.1 to the latest build, and there is a brand new build which is just about to come out, and so just letting you know, I will be updating that build on the weekend for you. So with that in mind, always remember that Sunday is not a great day to be working on tryacumatica.com. If you have your own instance and you have an urgent need to make sure that something gets done on the Sunday with your build, then just let me know and I'll make sure your instance isn't being touched, okay? But Sunday is patch day on tryacumatica.com, so just bear that in mind. If you're preparing for a demo on the Monday and you don't want your system to be touched on the Sunday, then again, as I said, just ping me, send me an email, contact me via Skype or whatever the case may be. So having said that, then let's go in, and I want to take you into tryacumatica.com. So let's go in and we'll grab that, www.tryacumatica.com, and you'll see down the bottom here, this is the latest build that the system's running on, 5.1.0463. So what I'll do is I'm just going to log in as admin, and I'm going to put in my password, which is 123, and then I'm going to hit sign in. And this should be no surprise to anybody as to how you use this functionality. This is Acumatica Basics, Acumatica one-on-one. So you'll see when you log in for the very first time, as per normal, we get the standard dashboards. So what I want to do in today's session is I want to introduce you to the very latest way that you can get access to data that's sitting inside Acumatica. And that is using a new feature called oData. And oData is a new web service, if you like, a new way of accessing your data from a web-enabled application like Acumatica. So oData stands for Open Data. Now, those of you who are with us at the Partner Summit in Long Beach will remember that Mike Chelkonigov, our CTO, stood up on stage and did a presentation and talked about what this is all about. Well, as I said, the good news is this is now all here and available for you to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm first of all going to take you through and show you how you can enable Acumatica for that oData interface. And then I'm going to show you two things. I'm going to show you how you then use Microsoft Excel to access your data using that new oData capability in Acumatica, and then we're going to dive in and take you through the latest technology from Microsoft, the latest business intelligence technology from Microsoft called Power BI. Now, the exciting news for everybody that's part of the Acumatica community is that this coming week, Microsoft have their Build conference. And I'm very excited to let you know that on the main stage at Microsoft Build, they will be demonstrating Power BI together with Acumatica. Okay, so that's going to be some pretty good coverage for us with Acumatica, and they're going to be showing basically the similar functionality that I'm showing. Well, exactly the same functionality, just a differently laid out demonstration. But that's going to be demonstrated this coming week at the Build conference. Now, I'm also going to be doing a special session for those of you who are members of the Information Technology Alliance, the ITA. As you probably are aware, we have the ITA Spring Collaborative coming up at the Marriott Sawgrass Resort in Ponte Vedra in Florida. And we will be having a special partner meeting on the Sunday afternoon at the ITA meeting for our Acumatica partners. So we'll be doing a special session there as well, covering off on this new functionality. So plenty of things coming up to get excited about. But anyway, how do you access oData? Well, one of the big things that people tell us is that it's great to have an ERP system that allows you to get data in. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Getting the information in the system, processing the transactions, managing the business flows that go on a day-to-day basis. But it's really, really important to make sure that once the data is in there, you can get it out in a way that's meaningful. Now, as you can see from this standard screen in Acumatica, you know that you can go and create a generic inquiry, a query, and then you can turn that query into a standard dashboard inside Acumatica. But there are many people running around who have the sign above their head saying spreadsheets are my life. They like to get their data in using Microsoft Excel. They like to manipulate the data. They like to visualize it using Microsoft Excel. So it's very, very important that whatever we continue to do at Acumatica, we take advantage of that fact. Now, there's a whole new suite of business intelligence tools. Many of our ISVs, we have people like the guys from that deliver the BI 360 product from Solver, the guys at Renovo, FYI. We have a whole range of these different ISV partners who are building and delivering business intelligence tools. But the one thing nobody really wants to do is be responsible for building plumbing. That's our responsibility at Acumatica. So part of that plumbing build that we've done is exposing out Acumatica information through this oData interface. So whether you're using Tableau, you're using ClickView, you're using SAP Lumira, or you're using Microsoft Power BI, this new oData interface allows you to go and access your data out of Acumatica very, very seamlessly. So how do you do it? Well, it's really easy. Step one is to go ahead and build a query in Acumatica that exposes that information out. So those of you who've been working with Acumatica for even the shortest amount of time will know that the way we build queries in Acumatica is through the generic inquiry functionality. So if I go in here to generic inquiries, for example, I can build a generic inquiry from scratch, but in my best television chef mode, here's one I've created earlier. Actually, I didn't create it. It's a standard part of the demo system. So our sales orders and quotes. So when you've built your generic inquiry, you check it, make sure it's showing the information that you want. And then all of the information that you put here, okay, in your display grid, this is what is going to be exposed out through oData. So you can build 1, 2, 3, 20, 500, 1,000 different generic inquiries, and all of those will be made available through oData, as long as you do one key thing. And that one key thing is, you'll now notice on the generic inquiry screen, we have this new field which says expose via oData. So after you've built your generic inquiry and it's giving you in the results grid all the fields that you want, then all you need to do is click here and say expose via oData, and then you hit save. It is that easy, and I challenge you to find any other ERP solution on the market that makes it that easy to expose out the data via an interface like oData or oData, depending on where you're from. Tomato, tomato, it's all the same to me. So anyway, now you've done that, you can now access that data from any oData compliant tool. So let's start off with the most simple one of all, which is Microsoft Excel. So I'm going to go in here into Microsoft Excel and I am going to open up a new spreadsheet. Okay, so I'll open up my spreadsheet, and so first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to get my data. So what do? I click up here on data and then I say from other sources, and you'll now see there's an option in here from an oData data feed. So now it says, well, what's the location of the data feed? And this is where it gets really cool. Our Acumatica site is at http://www.tryacumatica.com. So what do you think I put in here? http://www.tryacumatica.com. All right. Now, if it's secured with HTTPS, then you just put HTTPS and so on and so forth. But of course, I have to add one additional parameter here now to get to the oData stream, which is /oData. All right. Now it then says, give me your login credentials. Now, of course, if you've got single sign-on activated across all of your systems using Active Directory single sign-on, you can basically say use the sign-in information for the person opening this file. So when I create and save this Excel spreadsheet, it will automatically try and use their single sign-on information. All right, or I can say use this username and password, and you'll remember for our Acumatica, it's admin and 123. 123, very complex username and password. And then I say next. Now, what are you going to see happen right now? My computer is now going to go ahead and it's going to connect to my tryacumatica.com, and there you go. There is the generic inquiry that I exposed out. So I'll click on there and say, yes, that's the one I want. I'll then say next. I can now give it a file name. All right, I can tell it to save the password in the file. Just a warning, password is saved without encryption in ODC text files, which makes it less secure. Are you sure you want to save the password? I'm going to say yes right now. But if you don't, every time somebody tries to access this file, it's going to prompt them for their Acumatica username and password. So that way you're going to make sure that whatever data access you've set up inside Acumatica is reflected out through oData. All right? So that's the other advantage of this, and with everything we do from an Acumatica perspective, the security model that you've created inside Acumatica gets reflected out through this. So now you can put in here and you can give people a description of what this is. A list of all sales orders and quotes in the system. Okay? Because again, remember, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to make this nice and friendly so other people who can then use it, if they're not familiar with using these simple tools, you can just give them access to the file and they don't need to worry about it. Same thing here for your friendly name. All right, you can say this is sales orders and quotes again. Now, don't forget, this is just standard Microsoft Excel we're using here, so that's fine. And then I'll say, always attempt to use this file to refresh the data. And then I can go into my Excel services and I can set my authenticated data, and I can say, use the authenticated user's account and so on and so forth. But I'm going to just hit cancel on that because that doesn't matter right now. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say finish. And now it's going to say, all right, what do you want to do with this data? Do you want to put it into just a standard table? Do you want to put it into a pivot table? Do you want to put it into a pivot chart? Do you just want to create the connection? All right, and then if I'm putting it into a table, where exactly do I want to put it? So this is no big deal. This is just standard grabbing external data. Okay, so what am I going to do? Well, in this instance, okay, I just got a pop-up message saying, could I zoom in a bit? It's a little bit hard to see. 1 second. Let me do that. I'm just going to say okay because I can't zoom. unless I get rid of that dialog box. And that's now retrieving the data in here for me. We'll give that a couple more seconds to allow it to happen. So again, what's happening here is in real time using web services is going through, establish a connection to our server, and there you see it. There is all the data being pulled out of Acumatica for us. So let me just zoom in a little bit more for you. So hopefully that's a little bit easier to see. Now, what can I do? I can now basically start playing around with this information, and anytime I want to refresh the data, I just hit my refresh button, and that's now done. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. So I'm just going to leave that as my worksheet. I'm going to call that worksheet, and we'll give it a couple of seconds for our refresh to finish. And you can see, of course, down the bottom it's giving me an update. There you go, my data's refreshed. You see the screen flash a little bit and you know your data's refreshed. So I'm going to call this my data grid. Okay, and you'll see why this is important in a couple of seconds. So now I'm going to add another sheet, and this time I'm going to grab my external data, and I'm going to say from existing connections now, and there it is. There's already a connection in this workbook, sales orders and quotes. And I can see the tables that are in there. So I'm going to take this information. I can either get it fresh or I can pull it from the existing table that I've already got embedded in my Excel spreadsheet. So I'll say, yeah, let's grab it from there, and I'll say open. Now it's going to say, well, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to make it a pivot table report or a pivot chart? Well, I'll say I want to make it a pivot chart. I'm going to put it in this existing worksheet, and then I'm just going to say okay. And then voila, there it is. There is my pivot chart ready to rock and roll. So now what do I do? Very, very simple query, of course, in my generic inquiry that I'm using, but I can now make things really, really simple. So first thing I want to see is what's the dollar value that I've got? Well, it's my order total. So I simply click on that, and then there it is. Just a simple bar chart. All right, so I'm getting another message saying my screen resolution's too high. So I'm going to change that completely. Please stand by. And we'll kick it down maybe to 1920 by 1200. I'll say apply. Bear with me for a second, folks. Keep these changes. Okay, and that's all good. And let's go back into my Excel spreadsheet. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Okay, thanks, Roman. No problem. All right, so there is my data. So it's my sum of order totals. So now you've got measures and you've got dimensions. A measure is usually a numeric field, right? And a dimension is something that gives additional context to that number. So for example, in this case, my number is order total. But all these other values, all these other fields, these are dimensions. So if I want to see orders by order type, I just click on order type, okay? And then you can see now I'm getting my orders by order type, and it automatically puts it down here into these axes. So my values and my categories, all right? Now, I can then put something into a legend, all right? And then not only do I get that information here, I also get it in as a legend, so my order type. Now the great thing with this is because it's standard pivot chart functionality in Microsoft Excel, anybody who knows how to work with pivots knows how to do this. So I can select all of these values or whatever the case may be. And then of course I've got my data set here. And I can now start playing around doing all kinds of different things. So I want to see that by order status as well. So now I'm seeing orders by order type and order status. Then I might also want to see that by customer name. So now it's breaking it down even further. Now, of course, the more space I've got on my screen, the more meaningful this is going to be. All right, but this is where you have all of your different field types, all of your different chart types that you then want to work with. So you can pick all your different chart styles in Excel and choose these different chart styles and knock yourself out. Go crazy. Pick different colors, change your chart types, for example. And I can use clustered columns. I can use a 3D clustered column and then say, okay. and that's all done, and so on and so forth. And then I can just simply remove fields that I don't want to see. So I can then change this and say I only want to see by customer number. And then I can go one step further though, when I'm looking at, or by customer name rather, and when I'm looking at this, I can then start to narrow this down. So I can start sorting it and everything like that. So this might be more interesting if I want to see my top 10. All right, so I can go in here and I can select this value, and then I can say, all right, I only want to, I want to have this sorted on this value from largest to smallest. Make sense? Now then I can also go and change this. Okay, I can change this field, and I can go into my value field settings, and I can say, all right, do I want to sum these? Do I want to count them? Do I want to get an average? Well, summing is exactly what I want to do. And then I want to show these values in some way, shape, or form. Do I want to see them as a percentage of the grand total, percentage of the row total, whatever the case may be? Rank them from largest to smallest. So I'll say rank from largest to smallest, and my base field is the order, is my base field going to be the order type or the customer name? And so then I'll say OK. And there you go. Now I'm seeing this ranked like this, but I've got these additional values. So, for example, order type, if I get rid of the order type, I've now got that information in here. I can then go and do that again. Go into my value field settings. All right, show values as, and again, rank largest to smallest. And I'll say OK, and away we go. So there you go. That's basically, I mean, you know, you can now start working with that in any way, shape, or form that you like. So, got a question. All right, I can see a question here. No, I think I've answered all the questions. So, good. Let's just continue on then. So, beautiful thing, I've now got that ability to update that data, and of course, anytime I want to, I can go across to my data grid now. I want to refresh my data, go across here to data, choose refresh all, give that a couple of seconds to refresh, and whatever I've created in my Excel spreadsheet, all my pivot charts and everything like that, they're automatically going to be refreshed. Very nice, right? Yes, I hear the crowd go wild. Okay, so that's good. We've got that information there. So what's the next thing? Well, the next thing is I now want to take my data and I want to start analyzing this on the web. So what I want to do right now is I want to introduce you to a new tool from Microsoft, if you're not already familiar with it, called Power BI. So how do you access Power BI? Well, it's very, very simple. And by the way, anytime you want to use a Microsoft tool, might I respectfully suggest the best browser to use is Internet Explorer. Whether you love it, hate it, you're a Firefox bigot or a Google Chrome bigot, look, at the end of the day, if you want to use Microsoft tools and get the best result, you should use a Microsoft browser. Having said that, everything I'm about to show you will work with any browser, but I'm just going to use Microsoft Excel, all right? A Microsoft Internet Explorer, my apologies. So I'm just going to open up a new tab in Internet Explorer, and I'm going to go to www.powerbi.com. So right now, the thing to be aware with Power BI is that Power BI is in beta, and that's why you can see this comes up as a preview. So it's completely free right now. You can start to see pricing information as well, but because it's the Power BI preview, you're able to go in here and start using it for free of charge. Okay, so very, very simple. You just go in here, enter your work email address, and it'll set up a Power BI account for you. Well, I've already got a Power BI account, and it's linked to my Office 365 account. So I'm just going to sign in with my Office 365, and you'll now see here's some stuff that I've created earlier. All right, this is Microsoft Power BI. This is the standard fields and forms that you get. I'm just going to delete all of this data that I've already got in here. So I'll delete that as well. And then I'm going to delete these data sets because I want to show you from scratch how easy it is to work with these tools. Now, when you first log in, one of the things that you're going to get is the system gives you a it gives you a standard set of sample data that you can work with. And this is this retail analysis sample. But you, of course, you want to work with your own data sets. So there's a couple of different ways of doing that. Okay, you can click here on data sets and you can click the plus button to get data, or you can go up here and click on get data and you'll get the same thing. So these are the different data sources that are currently available for you to use with Microsoft Power BI on the web. You can say, I want an Excel workbook, a Power BI designer file, SQL analysis. You can go directly to your Google Analytics, Marketo, Dynamics CRM, Dynamics Marketing, Salesforce, SendGrid, Zendesk. Well, guess what? And please don't go running around and telling everybody about this one yet. In the next month or so, you are going to see a new one pop up on here. And what do you think it's going to say? No, it's not going to say NetSuite. No, it's not going to say Dynamics AX. No, it's not going to say Dynamics GP. It's going to say Acumatica. All right, so we're going to beat Microsoft to the punch, all things being equal, on getting a built-in provider inside Microsoft Power BI for Acumatica, which I think is pretty cool. So anyway, but for now, what am I going to do? I'm going to go back here into my Excel spreadsheet and I'm going to save this Excel spreadsheet. Okay. Now I'm going to save it onto my computer and I'm just going to put it on my desktop and I'll call it SOQ, which is sales orders and quotes, and I'll hit save. So that's now done. I'm going to close out of Excel for now. So what this will do is it will now say, all right, you want to get your data out of Excel? Great. So you say connect. And now you tell it where that file is. By the way, I usually save all of my data on OneDrive. Okay, so no matter which of my computers I'm working on, I can always access that data. But again, totally up to you how you do that. But in this case, I'm going to say it's coming from my computer. I choose Browse. I pick my desktop. There's my file. I then say connect. And what does it do? It basically uploads this file into Power BI. Now, not only does it upload the file, but it uploads that entire back-end link for you. All right? Hopefully that makes sense. So all that linkage to the Acumatica data is now up here in the file on the web. So if I look here at my data sets, you'll see I can select this and it will say, all right, here's what you've got. You've got your sales orders and quotes link that comes directly from the oData field, but remember I embedded that into a worksheet as a table. That's why you're seeing it twice. So I see the raw data feed and then I see the feed from the table. So if you've done transformations, if you've done calculated fields off the basis of this and there in here, you can access either one. All right, so that's my data file. But in this case, I want to go back. I don't want to save these changes. There it is. I can go in now and I can start building reports, and then I can also start building dashboards. All right, so if I go here to my dashboard, there is my data. It now says, ask a question about the data on this dashboard. Now, this is really where you can blow people away in demos. All right, you have to practice a little bit with this, okay, to get to understand it, but very worthwhile doing it. You need to know the names of the fields in the data file and what they are in order to use natural language. Now, one of the other things you might want to do once you've got it in there is you might want to rename it. So it's sales orders and quotes. Okay, so a little bit easier to see. So that's now my dashboard. So I can say customer. All right, and you see as soon as I start typing this information, it automatically starts showing me the information that's in there. So this is the data that's got the word customer in that field. Now it's actually customer name, but it automatically tries to guess it based on, based on this intelligence that's built into the product. Okay, so I can say customer order. Okay, so if I go in here and I can say customer order total. And what does it automatically do? It now automatically shows me that, tries to represent it for me as easily as possible. So it says, on the basis of what you're saying, well, this is what I think you want to see. Customer order total, but then I can say, I want to see this as a pie chart, as pie. Okay, and now it just shows me customer order total as pie. So that's great. So then I just click over here and that's now created. So then what can I do? I can pin that in place. All right, so that's now been pinned to my dashboard. And then if I want to, I can go ahead and start creating new views. All right, so I can take that and I can say, all right, top 10 customers sales orders. Okay, and again, the thing to bear in mind here, you've got to look at your data and understand what's in there in order for this to be able to produce something that's meaningful. All right, but again, here's the good news. At any point in time, I can just go back here to my data set, and there it is, order total I got. So remember, there's 3 fields that have got the word order in them. So it's going to try and grab the first one. You're going to have to be really specific and say order total if that's what you want. So let's go back here, don't save. So I can go back in here and I can say top 10 customer order total, all right, by order total. Okay, so now it's saying it's automatically sorting it, and then maybe I've got my top 10, that's at the wrong end there, so I'm actually getting customer order total by order total, top 10, where order total is 10, sorted by order total. So I don't quite know exactly the syntax to put in here, but here is the great thing about this. You can basically play around with it, and it's fairly easy to work with. All right, so then once you've done that, you have that as a dashboard. Now I can create another one. I can create another dashboard that's looking at this information a little bit differently. All right, so you can start to build really complex dashboards, and then once you've finished it, okay, you can go in here and you can save it. You can come in here and then you can say, all right, I now want to share this information. So who do I want to share it with? So let's say I want to share it with myself for the sake of the exercise. rduffy@acumatica.com. Check out this dashboard I created to track your data. Now I can then say, do I want them to have the ability to share the dashboard or not? So I'll say, no, I don't want Richard to be able to share it. So then I click on the share button. Oh, invalid list of emails, of course, because what am I missing? I'm missing my @ Okay, so there it is, and now I hit share, and it's now sending that out as an email. So there it is, there's my sales orders and quotes, the dashboard that I've already created, and that's now what's being shared out. So I can also do that by going up here and clicking on share. All right, same scenario. So that's great. So I can just do all of this purely from a web perspective, but one of the things that you will see is you also have the ability to download some additional tools. So you can now access all this data. If you've got an Apple iPad or an iPhone, you can use Power BI for iOS, or you can use the Power BI Designer. Now I've already downloaded that, but to download it, you just click on there and it'll take you and it'll ask you, do you want to run or save the PBI Designer? I'm just going to save it for the sake of the exercise, and then now it's downloaded. I have already Yeah, okay, great question, Colleen. I'm going to come back to that because I am going to show you the email. Colleen was just asking, what does the email look like when I receive it? So I will dive in and I will show that in a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to complete this process of using the Power BI Designer and go from there. All right, so I can click on here, and now if I start typing Power, there you can see it is, I've already got it installed, Microsoft Power BI Designer. And this is where it's opening up my Power BI Designer preview. All right, now I can see any recent sources that I've used, or I can go in here and I can say get data. And again, does this look familiar? You bet it does, because it's basically the same as what I can do inside Microsoft Excel. And of course, what's going to appear in here? Acumatica. All right. So I've got all these options here that I can choose. And in this case, I'm going to go to an oData feed. I'll say connect. And again, same scenario, http://www.tryacumatica.com/oData. And then I'll say, okay. It's now connecting. Now it's going to say, hey, this user was not authorized, so I need to specify my authorization. So I'll say it's basic, and it's admin, and 123, and then I'll say connect. And it'll give us a couple of seconds, and now it's connecting. And now what do you see? Up here in the navigator, once it's finished reading my oData stream, there it is, my sales orders and quotes generic inquiry. So now it's saying, hey, you need to provide some firewall information about that data source. All right, now this is what is basically going to ask you here is whether or not you want the information here, is it private, is it public, or is it linked to your organization? But in this case, so I can go here and I can say edit. All right, I'll say continue. And now it basically says, all right, what do you want to set? So I'll say public, organizational, or private. Well, I'm going to say it's public because it's just my demo data for the sake of the exercise. And then I'll hit save. Now, again, it's going to ask me, give me your credentials. So again, security is key with this. And of course, you can save these credentials into the system. Let's let it run. And now, there it is. There's all your data being shown for you as a query, because that's always the first step, right? That's the first step is always getting that information. And you can see these are the steps that you applied as you went through the process. I chose a source. I then went through my navigation. So now, what do I want to do? I can start doing all kinds of things here. I can start manipulating my data. I can start doing transforms. I can start specifying my data types. I can have multiple queries, and I can then start merging my queries, all right, to build more complex query sources to build my views on, all right? I can remove certain columns that I don't want people to see. I can look at the properties. I can do all kinds of things in here. Or I can now go ahead and say, you know what? I want to start building reports. So same scenario. We'll let it finish grabbing the data, and then you'll see as soon as the data is ready to start modeling, it's going to appear over here on the right-hand side. See, it's retrieving the data, grabbing this in real time, and there it is. So what do I want to see? Well, there's my value, order total. Okay, so I can click here, and I can say, show me order total, and it's exactly the same scenario as we were looking at before inside Microsoft Excel. Okay, so there's my order total. I want to see that by customer. There it is. Order total by customer name. Done. I now want to build another entry on my dashboard. So I just click anywhere in the blank canvas area here, and I say, what do I want to see? I want to see order total by currency. There it is, now broken down by US dollars and euros. All right, when I hover over it, I can see 13.1 million US, and I can see $906,000 in euros. But now, you know what? I actually want to see that broken down by order type. So I select order type, and now I'm seeing my sales orders is actually 12 million, and my quotes is 476,000, and I've only got sales orders in euros. All right, makes sense. I can go one step further and say, show me that by date, and then for each of the dates that's in there, it's actually going to give me a separate table. And of course, depending on how much data I've got, I may want to make that a little bit bigger. All right, but in this case, I don't want the date because that does funky things with it. But I can then go in and I can narrow down the date, and I can say, just make the date based on the month or the year. So rather than looking at every individual date where that data changes, it will group and aggregate on the basis of the month. Okay? Or I can say, show it to me by status. All right? So cancelled, completed, and opened. So I can get rid of that order type and the order currency. So now I've got cancelled, completed, and opened. Drag that back up to the size that I want. And then that's now on there. Okay, let's grab one more. I actually just want to know what is the total value of my orders. All right, so I can go here and I can say order total, now puts in a new one, and then I can put in a filter. So what I can do is I can say where the status, okay, and I can start to filter on this. Okay, so I can start to go in here to filters, and I can start adding filters. Let's go back though to my fields. And I can go in here and I can start to hide different pieces of information, but I've got my order total. So right now I'm going to go across here and I'm going to say I want to see that as a gauge. Click, there it is. There's my order total now as a gauge. All right, so then I might want to go and start playing around with this and start changing some of the values in here. Do I want to see my average order value? So I click that and say average. So that's my average sales order value. Okay. Or I might want to see how many orders do I have. So I'll say count distinct. I've got 436 orders that are making up this data. So of course, I can go back in at any point in time to my query and then start narrowing this down. So I can say, you know what, I only want to see those orders where the date, okay, is in the last month, or I can say for Q1, all right? And then I apply that filter. I've now got my Q1 data only, and then my report, because it's being based off that, that's now going to refresh. Make sense? So very, very powerful capabilities here. And I don't know about you, but I look at this and I think, I mean, this does not require a Bachelor of Science. It does not require a degree of anything except a degree of common sense to be able to drive this functionality. So it's pretty powerful. You can get in here and you can start narrowing this down. You can go in here and start putting in optional values and start saying, okay, well, you know, I can set my maximum value, or my target value rather. I can go and say if my target value is 200, then this gauge is automatically going to adjust itself. Okay, and show 117 is actually not going to be half of 200. It's going to be a little bit more than half. So does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Now, once I've done that, I can now go here and say File, Save. And I'm now saving this. And I'll say this is my Demo University example. Save it. That's now done. Let me go back to Power BI. All right, I go back here to get data. I now say I want to get this from a Power BI designer file. I then say connect. I choose my file. Now, guess what? I've actually been saving these on my OneDrive. So if I go into Power BI work, there it is, Demo University example. Or what I can do is I can tell it to pull this data from my OneDrive cloud. But in this case, I'm going to grab it from the local source, OneDrive Documents, Power BI Work, Demo University example. I say connect. It's now uploading that file. And there it is. There's my data set, Demo University example. I'm going to click on that. Okay, I can now go in here and I can say explore. I've now got that data up here that I can start to explore as well. I might say don't save. Or I can go in here and say add a dashboard, and I can start building a new dashboard from this data set. All right, so if I click on here, there it is. There's that dashboard that's already been created, already available for me. I can now, okay, file, save a copy, Demo University, example, and say save. And now I've got that information there for me. So there it is, my Demo University example. I can then retrieve that back. I'll say don't save, and I can now start playing around with this data and building new dashboards. Okay, so call to action. Call to action. I've given you the basics that you need. All right, you now know how to get your generic inquiry exposed out via oData. You now know how to access that oData stream from inside Excel and from inside Power BI. You now know how to get the Power BI Designer, right? All of this that I've just shown you right now is free. Okay, so you can go and you can start doing this. Now, if you don't have a 5.1 demo instance, contact me. All right, most partners nowadays have your own demo instances on one of the tryacumatica.com servers. But if you don't have one yet and you would like one, let me know. I can set it up for you, and then you'll always have the very latest version of the software and the very latest version of the demo data available for you to work with. So with that, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go back to my questions and see if there are any other questions. All right, I'm just going to stop showing my screen for a second while I open up my email, and then I'm going to show my screen again when I've got the right email open. One second. All right. Here is that email. So what am I going to see? I'll just start sharing my screen again. So here is that email. I can go in here and it says, hey, check out this dashboard I created to track our data. So what do I do with this? I can then click here on Open Sales Orders and Quotes. So what's that going to do? It's my default browser at the moment is Firefox. So it's saying, hey, welcome to the Microsoft Power BI public preview. It's going to say, hey, you need to sign up for a Power BI account to see it. But again, this is free. So I go in here and I say sign up. And I'm going to sign up with one of my other accounts just for the sake of the exercise, duffyhome@gmail.com. And I'll say sign up. Okay, got it. Whoops. Sorry, I should have read the screen then. Always a good idea. I'm always telling people here, don't just click on the first available button. See what it tells you. It's like a personal, enter your work address so we can connect you with others in your company. Okay, got it. So I'll use my other one, richard@smbsolutions.com.au. And I'll close that down and I'll say sign up. Working on it. You already have an account, so that's good. So I'll put this in here. Almost there. Start. It's working on it. Waiting, waiting, waiting. And you can see it's telling me down the bottom, waiting. It's setting up my portal. It's the first time I've used it with this account. Just get rid of that. Yeah, get rid of that. Close down that. Okay, one last thing. It's asking me to sign in again. Okay, now that it's done that, Duffy at smbsolutions.com.au. So you can see it's automatically set up this Microsoft Power BI for me. And then I'll sign in. Whoop. Problem between keyboard and chair. I put in my wrong email address. Oh, come on, Richard, you idiot. Make sure I'm doing this right. That's better. Always helps if you use the right email account. So that's now signing me in. Or is it? Yes, there we go. Problem between keyboard and chair, as I said. So there it is. There's my sample. I'll say get started. And then I can now start building my own, or that one that was shared with me should actually be in here. You know what I've done, folks? I've actually too many accounts, and I've just selected the wrong account. So that's why that's not coming in. Let me do that again. Open sales orders and quotes. Okay. Now it's here. This should be coming in to the system for me. And for some reason it's not. So again, as I mentioned, I'm not sure why this isn't working for me. I'm expecting to see it in here in my data sets. Again, this is a beta, it's a preview, so occasionally these kinds of things do happen. Okay, so I'm just going to sign out. And I can sign in again, and let's just see if it comes up. I was actually doing a training session internally for everybody, and none of it was working. Well, not none of it. Some of the components weren't working correctly. So then what happened? As soon as everybody finished and left the room, I went and hit F5 to refresh, and guess what? Everything came up exactly as I expected it to. So again, some little glitches. So again, as I said, because this is a beta, don't be surprised if you do run into some little issues, some little hitches and glitches. But hopefully that gives you the basic information that you can now see. I'm going to just try this and say sign in. And let's see what I get. Nope, it's still not working. I suspect, actually, why don't I try this? If I was to go and log in, I'll go and sign out from here. I think I know what it is. It's because I sent the invitation to rduffy@acumatica.com, and I'm trying to open up that invitation with rduffy at smbsolutions.com, and I did not tick the option to allow Richard, myself, to share this with other people. So I suspect that's what it is, but we're just about out of time anyway. I encourage you to go ahead and play with the software, get familiar with it, take a look at the newswire next week, see the announcement when it comes out that Acumatica is being presented on stage. Get ready and go out and start demonstrating this functionality to your customers today, because they can start using it. Okay, any questions on the basis of what we've gone through today? Let me expose out the question and answer pod. If you've got any questions, please feel free to type it into the chat. Doesn't look like anybody's typing. Going once, going twice. Sold. Okay, so that brings today's session to an end. Hopefully you found it useful. I will be making this recording available to everybody after the session. Remember, next week we're back into the Marketing University, and then the following week Tom Costa will be back and he will be presenting the Demo University. So again, thank you very much and have a great rest of your day and have a great upcoming weekend.